Cantus Naravan Dracovin, Lord and Emperor of the Dracovin Empire, and welcome! It is time to continue my discussion on the history of Magic the Gathering, where I go set by set, release by release, go over some information about it, share it with you, and let you a little know about the kind of cards and mechanics and various lore that came about with each card product release that Wizards of the Coast has come out with in the Magic the Gathering line. Alright, so today, of course, we have another of the Duel Deck series, the second one ever released. Duel Decks, Jace Vs Chandra. So Duel Decks Jace Vs Chandra, of course, again, was the second of the Duel Deck series, and was released on November 7th of 2008. Now, retailed originally for $20, it had 120 cards, and it had two major themes to it. The themes of burn spells, and the themes of counter spells. Now, similar to the last Duel Decks, it had two theme decks, though each of these theme decks was focused around a different planeswalker in this case. One of them focused around Jace Vs, the blue planeswalker that was introduced, and the other one focused around Chandra, the red planeswalker that was introduced. Each of these decks had a combination of cards which represented a lot of the previous cards that had come out over the last 15 years of Magic, so it was harkening back to a lot of those previous years. And unlike the previous decks that had existed, which were tribal themed, these were themed on different aspects of types of decks. One of them was a much slower control-based deck that focused on counter spells, the one that Jace had, and the other was a much more aggro deck focused on burn spells, the one that Chandra was based on. So there was a lot of alternate functionality and strategy for each of these. Now, there were two alternate art foils. Of course, one was of Jace Vs and the other was of Chandra. But there was also four other cards that depicted alternate art. There were two blue ones depicting Jace, example would be for Counterspell, and then two red ones depicting Chandra, and in this case, Seal of Fire as an example. Now, it did contain a learn-to-play strategy guide insert, and it had three 3/1 elemental tokens with haste, well, elemental shaman tokens, to represent the cards that Chandra had. One could make tokens. Now, a special Japanese language only reissue did occur on December 3rd, 2010. The big difference between the original and this Japanese language version is that the Planeswalker cards, the alternate art foils, were changed with yet another set of art. Anime-inspired art of Jace and Chandra were put together with these foils done by Japanese manga artist Yoshino Himori. Now, this isn't the only reprint we've seen of these cards. In the Duel Decks anthology, we saw these cards also reprinted with the new card frames that had come about since then. Now, this product is very loosely based on a webcomic called Fuel to Fire, which was about Jace and Chandra competing for this scroll. The scroll would later be revealed to be a map to the Eye of Ungin, in which in the webcomic Awakening, it was shown the two of them uniting together and using the spell Ghost Flame in order to defeat Sarkam Vol. Now let's talk about some of the cards from this set. There's, of course, Jace Vs. He starts with 3 counters on him. He's, of course, a Planeswalker. For a tick up of 1, each player draws a card. For a tick down of 1, each target player draws a card, and for a tick down of 10, target player puts the top 20 cards of their library into their graveyard. There was Ancestral Vision. It was suspend for 4 for 1 blue mana. It had no actual mana cost to cast it, so you had to suspend it, but once it was cast, target player drawed 3 cards. Guile cannot be blocked except by 3 or more creatures. It's a 6/6. But also, if a spell or ability would counter a spell, you instead exile that spell, then you may play that spell without paying its mana cost. So you counter something, it gets exiled, guess what, you can play it. If Guile would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, you shuffle it into its owner's library. Quicksilver Dragon is a flying that has morph of 4 colorless and a blue. For 1 blue, if target spell that would be targeting 1 target, and that target would be Quicksilver Dragon, you can change that spell's target to another target. Effectively, I cast something or have something affecting Quicksilver Dragon, I can move it to another target, but Quicksilver Dragon has to be the only target. Chandra has 6 tokens on her when she comes into play, 6 loyalty counters. For tick up of 1, she does 1 damage to target player. For tick down of X, she does X damage to target creature. And for a tick down of 8, she does 10 damage to target player and each creature that player controls. Demon Fire does X damage to target creature. If that creature dealt damage this way would die this turn, instead exile it. And it has a Hellbent ability, meaning if I have no cards in hand, Demon Fire cannot be countered by spells or ability, and the damage it deals cannot be prevented. Hostility is a 6/6 haste that if a spell you control would deal damage to an opponent, instead prevent that damage and create a number of 3/1 elemental shaman tokens with haste equal to the damage prevented. Meaning from now on, if I do some kind of spell to burn my opponents, instead I get that many tokens. Rakdos Pit Dragon, for 2 red it can fly, for 1 red it gets +1/+0 until end of turn, it fire breathes, and also has a Hellpent, no cards in hand, that if you have no cards in hand, it has double strike. Brine Elemental has a morph of 5 colorless, 2 blue. When it is turn faced up, each opponent skips their next untap phase. So I can basically make it that, you can untap now, the next turn. Counterspell is just that. It's the classic counter-target spell. Fact or Fiction has you reveal the top 5 cards of your library. Target opponent splits this into 2 different piles. You choose one of these piles and put it into your hand, and take the other pile and put it into your graveyard. So you're going to get some cards out of it regardless. Fledgling Macaw has a morph of 2 blue. It is flying and can tap to deal 1 damage to target creature or player. It is a flying Timmy that has morph. Incinerate does 3 damage to target creature or player. A creature dealt damage this way cannot be regenerated this turn, so I burn something to prevent some regeneration. Not that it comes up a lot in this 2-set decks, but still. Terrain Generator, you can tap for a colorless, or you can tap 2 colorless mana and tap it to put a basic land card from your hand onto the battlefield. Of course, that land does enter tapped. Then there's Willbender. Well, Willbender also has morph for a colorless and a blue. When Willbender is turned face up, you change the target of target spell or ability that has a single target to another target. But that's it for today. So, I introduced you to Duel decks, Jace Vs Chandra. A different take on the entire concept of duel decks, that they've changed it greatly from what it was, in a way, tribal themed, to types of deck themes: control, aggro, counterspells, burn. We're exploring what these duel decks could mean using the excuse of the Planeswalkers, Jace and Chandra, in a way, and building different examples of types of decks that you could build or have in Magic. Regardless, though, I hope you're having a great day. If you've actually had some cool decks that you've built using burn or counterspells as your themes, why don't you tell me about them in the description below? Love hearing your stories about the cool decks that you've had in Magic the Gathering. And until the next time, I bid you farewell.